So I'm going to tell you the story of what happened, and my husband's going to do a nice editing job to try and put everything together to show you yesterday's and the finished end result of today's video to see how it all comes together. And I wanted to make this to be helpful to those of you that may not have experienced anything like this before. We haven't either, but this is at least our fifth or sixth kidding season, so we know in farm life there's tragedies, accidents. There's also a lot of joy and beauty in things. So sharing this so I can help someone else. So this is what happened. We have a doe that we also have her brother, and they are full-blood related just from different seasons. Well, he got out twice this year, and the first time I watched everybody and saw everybody go through a heat cycle again. Second time he got out, same thing, watching and making sure, because there's definitely ones that we didn't want him to breed with, and particularly, this one, his sister. So I was just sure she had cycled from the first time that he got out, and the second time I marked it on the calendar when her due date would be. However, I did go back and I marked both dates on the calendar when he got out so that I could keep track of things. So yesterday morning, I went out to find her headbutting, and she had some blood hanging out of her rear, and I immediately ran to the barn thinking she had aborted. And ran to the barn, and there were the babies already cold and dead. One of them, she appeared to clean up pretty well, and then the second one, she didn't get the sack broken on it. And it wasn't really, it was freezing temperatures, but it was not lots below freezing. I don't think it was more than 10 degrees below, in a barn, safe, but just completely miscalculated. So it does happen to the best of us. This is the first time it's happened to me, so that's why it's kind of hard. In the beginning, I thought maybe the babies weren't full term, and something did cause her to go into early labor. But looking at the babies, they looked full term, pretty comparable, and lo and behold, I went back to my calendar. I keep a desk calendar like this, and right here, this is the first date the buck got out, and I marked it. Can't get any more blatant than that. Unfortunately, I was just sure that she cycled again, and so that was the date I put down for her due date, which was March 1st. So 6 weeks, she kidded yesterday, 6 weeks earlier than I expected her to kid. So things didn't work out so well. So here's the end result. Trying to make the best of it. The births were not planned as far as the matchup, and the timing of the year was not ideal. I usually like to start in March. So the best case scenario of this, aside from now that my milking starts early, this is what I'm going to do to make the best of the situation. I got her on the milk stand and milked her out, and so now I have colostrum. I mean, the first colostrum. Don't want to waste that. This is kind of like liquid gold. So you can see what I've done is I have some breast milk storage bags for ladies, and completely ideal because I can label it and mark it on here exactly what it is, and just keep this in the chest freezer for an emergency situation, and I won't have to use formula. So that is the best case scenario, and I will continue to save her milk like this for 2 weeks until the colostrum works out, and then it's not so bitter for human consumption. We do drink all of our goat's milk and make various things from it, cheese, soap. But so to make the best of a bad situation, I now, you know, have these bags, and I can label, I'm going to label not only how much it is and the date, but what day it is into the milking. So I have day 1 and I have AM on it. And start that one because they don't always kid in the morning, but most of mine had. So I start big time that is the very first colostrum. So that is your liquid gold in the case of emergency for the other kids to follow. So, you know, things didn't line up. We probably weren't going to keep the kids because they were full related. We did have concerns if development wasn't going to be there when they were birthed. Who knows? Once again, sometimes, you know, God has another plan. And so even though it was an accident that she was bred and then a tragedy in the end, so at the very least here, the milk and the colostrum won't go to waste, and we can have that for another kid that might need it or is in danger, or if we have triplets with another one or something and the milk production isn't there, because formula is just, you know, not comparable, not the best stuff. So anyway, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Chick-a-Woof Ranch. And I'm in the midst of a mini crisis with the goats this morning. Turns out one of our goats kidded last night. We weren't expecting it at all. She, as far as we knew, was supposed to kid on March 1st, but truly her breeding was not planned. Our buck got out. It was an accident, and we thought we saw her cycle again when he got out the second time. But obviously, as you'll see later, the babies looked nice and formed. However, the lungs are some of the last things to develop, so I still think she's early, but it's a cold weather snap, and darn it, this is part of farming and animals. I'm going to walk you out to the goat barn because I just noticed something. If you've never experienced this before, Patsy was the mama who had the babies, and she has returned to the barn where I found them, and she's, you know, crying in distress for her babies. She had already separated from them, but it's something we're familiar with because this happens when we bottle feed our kids, and I can go into that another time, but I just wanted to show you what it's like. Okay, Patsy is the brown one in the foreground with lots of spots, and she's the one here that's looking around. That's her right there. And she had returned to the barn, and she's going to be crying and talking about it a little bit more, regardless of whether you bottle feed your kids like we do but obviously hers are lost, and so she's looking, and this is normal behavior. This is Cheyenne, and if you'll notice, she's kind of given the cat the stink eye, and the cat's gonna come in. I have the babies here in the wheelbarrow, and she's being a little protective of the babies. Good girl. So anyway, tragedies happen on the farm. This is not our first season of kidding. This will be, I believe, our 5th season of kidding, and it won't be our last, and we experience lots of things. So it's unfortunate with the babies. If they were not early, the cold weather got them. There are some positive sides to this. Patsy, we didn't plan on breeding her, and she bred to her brother. So not ideal. Probably wouldn't have kept the babies. But the positive sides are to it. Her mother kids harder. And I've had to help her pull all of her babies out. So Patsy did it fine by herself. Another positive is that I got her on the milk stand. We had been training her to eat on the milk stand, and even though she lost her babies, we would have been milking her anyway, or her babies would have been nursing. So some people might let it go. I'm not. In fact, I will get her up there like I did and milk out the little bit of colostrum, and I'll save it. And so I will have that colostrum to save in another emergency case where maybe a mother's milk isn't coming in, not producing enough. So we'll have that to save, and so I'll continue to do that for the next couple of weeks, really save that milk and label that. This is typical behavior after kidding and being separated with the kids. Lots of headbutting with others and kind of wrestling around and just, searching and seeking. She knows that she's had her babies, and she doesn't know why they're gone. Also, upon finding the babies and going back and getting everything taken care of, I did go back and I did find the placenta as well. So it's important, whether it's a planned birth or not, to go back and look around and make sure that you can try to find the placenta to make sure it passed, so that there's no infection that happens. So all in all, it looks like it was a very healthy birth. So that's another positive to know for the future. It's just sad that we had to start this season out this way, but such is life, and that's why I'm sharing, especially for all you newbies getting into it. Sometimes the tragedies happen in the beginning when you least expect it. I'm glad ours have come a little by little along the way, but I know there's still more to come.